right, movie review time. Just got back from seeing Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. It is directed by George Miller, stars Anya Taylor-Joy, Chris Hemsworth, and Tom Burke, among others. Um, Saw the trailer to this one and immediately knew I wanted to see it. It seemed like there was a lot of playing with scale on this particular film, some really good cinematography work. So I was super excited to go see this. Let's dive in piece by piece to this movie, and then I will give you my overall rating at the end of it. Starting with um, what I liked about it. The cinematography, I was correct. The cinematography was beautiful. They were absolutely gorgeous shots, especially the following of the uh, the particular trucks and bikes and all the vehicles involved. Just the way the camera work on that was just absolutely stellar. Um, Also, it there was a lot of playing with in terms of color of the movie, leaning into the the deeper, darker colors, especially just enhancing. I feel like, or leaning heavily into blacks that really set a mood or just general moodiness to the movie itself, which plays really well, obviously, in this kind of a storyline. Um, Next, I would say um, theme was pretty noticeable, decent. In terms of theme, I'm not necessarily referring to the plot or the overall storyline. I'm more referring to the things that we can pull from the movie, other things that it's trying to say. I think you could possibly argue there's a message about vengeance um, in this film, um, for sure. But you know that leads into plot. This movie kind of felt a little bit like a disorganized mess, if I'm being honest. I think that I could give you the surface level plot. I'm not going to do that, obviously, because I don't want to ruin anything. But um, you walk out of there and you don't really have to think too hard about um, surface level plot. And to be honest with you, I, if I was asked to describe this movie or this storyline in a few sentences, I would, or a sentence, whatever it may be, um, I would say it's what would happen if there was an apocalypse and the only survivors were bikers. Which is, it's not necessarily a plot that, or plot, it's not necessarily a theme or whatever you want to call it that I'm super interested in. But I'll tell you this, it doesn't have to necessarily be a theme I'm super interested in. If the storyline is good enough um, and you're conveying a message and you're trying to get something across, and the acting is good and the cinematography is good and all the pieces are right, it doesn't matter. I will be drawn into the story. And that was not here. It just was not here. Um, I, I there was it was an intriguing story, um, intriguing enough for me to go see it, but it doesn't maintain interest in it, and I feel like some of that plays out in the characters. There really are no arcs to the characters, in my opinion. in my opinion. That's critical. It's very critical to a movie. There should be arcs to the characters. There should be development. Um, we should see potentially um, more than one or two emotions out of said character. We should understand who they are, what they're coming from, um, their motivations, on why they're doing certain things. I don't know that that's here, period. In fact, I don't know really that the main character, played by Anya Taylor Joy, ever crosses into any other emotion other than the one that she begins the film with. Um, and so that's problematic. That when you don't have motivations shown, when you don't have development in characters, then how is the audience going to possibly buy into a story or get invested in the people um, that you're showing them? You're just not going to. Again, these reviews, these are my initial reviews. This is a first watch review, and that's what I took from it. I mean, I couldn't get invested in anything here, and that was problematic. Um, it, and that kind of also leads into, I think, another issue, um, which would probably be within editing. Um, it's just kind of slow. Pace. Again, we've got kind of a slow scenario here. I think that's very likely due to lack of character development again. And one way that you build character development is through dialogue, and there's kind of a lack of that. There's kind of a lack of dialogue there. Um, on top of there's narration that goes in and out, and kind of my takeaway from it at the end of the day was um, they had to toss that in last minute because they realized that they hadn't really conveyed the story or the characters. So now we're gonna have to toss in some quick narration to explain a couple things. Um, that should never happen. So in terms of soundtrack score, there really wasn't much of a score. Although I will say, in terms of sound in general, I thought that they did do well on that. The action sequences, and there's quite a few, are fantastic action sequences. Uh, they do draw you in. I'm not going to say necessarily you're on the edge of your seat by any means, but they are good. And the camera work and just the general sounds make those scenes believable. So in that, they did a very good job. So I can appreciate it for that, for sure. Um, but I'm just going to come right out and say, overall, I'd give this movie a 5 out of 10. I'd give it a 5 out of 10. IMDb, it currently sits at a 7.8 out of 10. And here, while I'm, sitting at the computer, let's just go ahead and take a look at the Rotten Tomatoes score for this particular film. But yet again, okay, and on Rotten Tomatoes it has a 90% and it's certified fresh. So yet again, here is a disconnect between me and IMDb, or Internet Movie Database, and Rotten Tomatoes. Um, I don't see it. Um, and again, to be perfectly honest, it could be that I'm just not a fan necessarily of that storyline. I don't know that I totally personally buy that if there was some kind of an apocalyptic or nuclear event or something that would lead to the decimation everything that we know, that we would immediately devolve back into, you know, that particular kind of society. I don't know that I buy that. So take this review for what it's worth. If you like Mad Max and you have followed this saga, um, then you might rate this higher than me. Um, you know, I wanted this to be really really good. I wanted it to be a really really good movie. I was rooting for it, but at the end of the day, I can't get there because of lack of character development. The plot is kind of all over the place. Just when I think I'm figuring one thing out, we've jumped to a next piece of the story. Um, who are these folks? How do they pertain to what's happening? Um, Especially, their leader. Can you tell me more about said leader? But then they never do. Um, it's just if you're going for you know, oil to flow like blood and explosions and that kind of thing, then you're going to get some of that in this movie. And if that's the only box it needs to check for you, well, then they've checked that box. But for me, I need some story. I need a plot. I need better pacing. Um, I think it would have benefited from a little bit better of a soundtrack. Like I said, there really wasn't any. But I did think that the sound was good. I did think the cinematography was phenomenal. Um, but that's about it. So there you have it. That is Furiosa, Mad Max Saga, um, directed by George Miller and starring Anya Taylor-Joy, Chris Hemsworth, Tom Burke. One other thing, going back to the character piece, Chris Hemsworth, I don't know that I buy him as a villain. Uh, I think he just kind of struggled. I almost feel like that he felt this. I haven't played a villain as much, and I need to brush up on this. I need to figure out how I'm going to play this. And he popped in a tape of Heath Ledger from Dark Knight. Um, I kind of got a little bit of that kind of a feel. So just another piece. Anyway, there you have it. Furiosa, Mad Max Saga. I give it a 5 out of 10.